Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Tiffany and today I am going to be talking about the single book that I read in January and talk to you about the books that I am reading in February and the books that I started in January but haven't finished reading quite yet. First, I want to say that it's been so nice to finally have time to read for leisure. I went through a bit of a funk for a couple years where the first year I didn't really read that much outside of academic reading and had not that much interest in it, to be honest, but I gave myself a lot of guilt for that, so I would try to push myself, which made me even more resistant and avoidant. And so then last year I basically just gave myself a year of not pushing myself and guilting myself, just take the time off of reading except for the reading that I have to do. Last year I also talked about how it was kind of like my year of accountability and how I really wanted to focus less on reading and ideas and more on implementing some of these principles and ideas that I had been thinking about for quite some time. And it was a really wonderful experience. I think that's really important sometimes to get out of my head a little bit because I can be very stuck up in there and make sure that I'm implementing the things that I read about or that I want to do. And so while that year of kind of being behaviorally active and intentionally kind of moving out of my head and into real life was really great, it has been really nice to be back in the headspace and have time and a desire to read again. So that's been really exciting. So in January, I saw that Olive, from a book Olive, was hosting a read-along on Goodreads, and I was really excited. I thought that was a really great opportunity to get back into reading. Any kind of accountability really helps me to maintain my reading activity, so I wanted to join, and so we read The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. The Midnight Library follows Nora, who decides quite early on in the book that she wants to end her life. And she feels very stuck within her life. She feels as though nothing she has done in the past has changed her experience, and nothing she can do in the future will change that experience either. And so she overdoses on a significant amount of pills and finds herself in this kind of in-between world, which is called the Midnight Library. And this is a quite literal library which kind of houses all of the potential outcomes her life could have, all these different alternate universes, if you will. And so what happens in the Midnight Library is Nora gets to sort of try on and sample out these different potential lives she could have had, and through this she learns quite a bit of information. And so I think I ended up rating this book 3 out of 5 stars. I thought that the concept was very interesting. I know in the book club that Olive hosted for this book, a lot of people said that this is a concept that they've read about before, but for me this wasn't something that I have read about before, so the concept was very interesting to me. And I do like how a lot of Nora's interactions with other people and her sampling her different lives very much kind of served as a sort of, Socratic questioning process where these different lives were the Socratic questioners and she was left to kind of answer these things. And in many ways it was also very interesting to me because it was almost like a sort of process of cognitive behavioral therapy through, trying on these different lives and her, kind of questioning some of the assumptions that she previously made, questioning things about herself, questioning things about the world. And so it was enjoyable in that way. At the end of the day, though, the overall concept of the book, while very interesting and fun to read about, was just kind of very okay for me. But I would recommend this, I think, if somebody heard that premise and thought it was interesting. 2 other books that I started reading in January, and the other one is Lead from the Outside, How to Build Your Future and Make Real Change by Stacey Abrams. And I originally started reading this in audiobook format. Audible had a holiday discount sale thing, so I got Audible and I decided that I would listen to this, and then I ended up buying this book because there's so much within it that I really want to mark down, and there's activities in here that I want to do. And I haven't finished it yet because I have still been just listening to it on audiobook, but so far what I have read honestly has been very, very powerful for me. This is a book about how minorities can kind of find access points to position of power and positions of voice, and use those access points to gain power for themselves and for people within their communities that are often underrepresented. And although I don't necessarily apply to all these different things, I think a lot of Stacey Abrams' suggestions and pieces of advice are really, really important for a lot of different people who want to become active proponents of change. I know that I am privileged by my whiteness, and in many other ways. I will say that as a female, and with my particular life experiences, some of the advice I do feel really kind of helped me kind of challenge myself and question myself a little bit and see different ways that I can grow. Right now, I just got done listening to chapter 3, and in chapter 3, she talks a lot about how we can oftentimes mask self-doubt with humility. And that was something that I really, was challenged by, because I oftentimes feel very uncomfortable acknowledging any of my strengths or being acknowledged for any of my strengths. And recently, when I have kind of stepped into my strengths, I have gotten kind of rough feedback from people who I think are kind of more comfortable with passivity. And so that was a really difficult thing for me to process. Like, on one hand, I'm being told that, it's okay to kind of step up into your strengths and acknowledge your strengths. It doesn't mean you have to be cocky and arrogant, but it's okay to really own your strengths. And at the same time, when I kind of started first trying to do that, and first started trying to be a little bit more assertive, kind of getting squashed a little bit. And so it was very reassuring for me to hear about that, because, it reminded me that, there are going to sometimes be people who are uncomfortable with others who are assertive and others who are confident, especially as women, and especially for other people who are minorities and other parts of their identities. That's especially true, but that doesn't mean that we have to silence ourselves. And so I really liked that, and I also really liked her ideas on holding ourselves accountable. That when we're open, if we know we want to make active change, we not only have to be open to kind of stepping up into owning ourselves and our positive traits and our power, we also have to be open to getting critical feedback. And so at the end of the day, I'm really enjoying the book so far. I have a couple other books that I've recently purchased from different leaders that I really, really respect and admire, and I'm hoping to kind of let those readings kind of guide me into figuring out how to be a more active proponent of change, but in ways that I'm needed, not for kind of self-motivated purposes. So I actually will show some of those other ones in an upcoming book haul. The other book that I started reading in January is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This is very, very fascinating. This is a sort of whodunit mystery, but with almost some kind of quantum physics involved. It's very, very interesting. I will say that as I'm getting more towards the middle and end, I do feel like it's dragged on a little bit longer than it needs to be. I'm kind of like, okay, I want to know, more about the other stuff. But I will say that I am really enjoying this. It's just taking me a really long time to get through. And then in February, even though I have those other books that I'm kind of reading through, I did add 2 other books to my list that I have to read. The first one is Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry by Mildred D. Taylor. I'm pretty sure this is a middle grade book or young adult book. I'm not entirely sure what it's classified as, but regardless, I chose this book because within my personal friends, I started a Facebook book club, and I kind of put a poll out there to have, it's small enough now where everybody can suggest a book and then people vote on it, and so this is the book that won. And so I'm about halfway through at this point, and I'm enjoying this so far, and I will have more to say when I'm finished reading it. And then finally, I picked back up after like 6 months of not reading it, Clarity and Connection by Yung Pueblo. This is a collection of different ideas and poems and thoughts, and I originally started reading this a while back, and I bought it because I saw Yung Pueblo's blurbs on Instagram, and really thought a lot of them to be thought-provoking. I put it down for quite a while, but now I'm trying to pick it up and finish it. That is all that I have for you all today. I know it's been a really long time since I have filmed anything. I'm no longer going to try to make any promises or put out any expectations of my filming, just because I'm horrible at maintaining them at this point. But I will say I have finally been reading more, and it's been really, really lovely to come back. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all. I'd love to know what books you read in January that you really, really loved, what books you're reading throughout this month. I hope that you share that with me in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And until then, please be well.